Hello and welcome back to another Blu-ray review, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the third film in the Hopping Mad The Mr. Vampire sequel's release from Eureka, and the fourth film in the Mr. Vampire series, Mr. Vampire Saga 4. We begin with part 4. A long time ago in a Taoist monastery far, far away. We are talking about the 1988 film, which, it's one of those, are we talking about like chronologically confused about the Mr. Vampire sequel titles? I don't know. All I know is that the previous film in the series did not have any vampires in it. So this one does. So they're back on track as far as the hopping vampire thing is concerned. But this film, much like the previous two that I've already talked about in previous reviews, the last two that I've done, is directed by Ricky Lau, produced by Sammo Hung, Jessica Chen, and stars Wu Ma as Sifu Yi Yu, and Anthony Chan as Four-Eyed Taoist, Chin Kar-lok as Kar-lok, Loletta Lee as Ching Ching, Yuan Hua as Attendant Wu, and Pauline Wong as Fox Spirit. There's a few other people missing from that main cast list, I would say, but so Kar-lok is a name I need to remember, I think, and Loletta Lee. Okay, so going into this one, no expectations once again. I just know that for every Mr. Vampire film there really is no connectivity with the other movies, so it's a fresh slate in many ways. And this one is a very simple film compared to the previous two in this release, Mr. Vampire 2, Mr. Vampire 3. It's almost primarily set in this one very small location, which is this kind of country area with these two small houses right next to each other. One of them houses Wu Ma's character, who's this kind of Buddhist priest master, and the other is housing the Four-Eyed Taoist. So the Taoist master, played by Anthony Chan, and they don't like each other. They don't get on with each other. It's a little bit of an odd couple kind of thing going on there, I suppose. Well, not quite, but it's bordering on that. And actually, I would say that it's really the Taoist who doesn't like the Buddhist. The Buddhist kind of, he plays along with it and has fun with it, but the Taoist really hates the Buddhist guts. So Wu Ma just kind of, it's like water for a duck's back. Anthony Chan, it's all boiling at this rage of this annoying Buddhist neighbor that he's got. And they both have assistants. So Wu Ma, the Buddhist, he has this young female assistant called Ching Ching, played by Loletta Lee. And the Taoist has an assistant called Kar-lok. And he has kind of a budding romance with Ching Ching, which develops throughout the first half of the film. Because by the time we get to the second half of the film, it's kind of all-out action. But I would say like 85% of the film takes place in their houses or outside the houses. Like, it's a very contained film, and I actually love that. I loved this location. I don't know what it was, whether it's the sets, the nature. In a way, it reminded me of My Neighbor Totoro, like just that kind of lovely kind of just the greens, just a nice kind of country area, and these two like cool houses, like the I don't know, the what would you call it? The layout of them and the interior design. I don't know. I just loved the look of these two houses, particularly the Buddhist's house. And so I just enjoyed hanging out with these characters and in this location a lot, really. So that was one of the main things I enjoyed about the film, was just where it was set. And then it was kind of a smaller kind of film in that sense. But the action, for me, is much bigger and elaborate and more impressive, I think, than the previous two films. So the first half of the film is a little bit slow in that regard, because it's really just setting up this neighborly rivalry between Wu Ma and Anthony Chan, and that's, to me, was just really fun stuff. Like, there's these like slapstick jokes that caught me off guard. I love Wu Ma. Let me just get that out of the way. I think he's so funny, and he plays the Taoist master in A Chinese Ghost Story. I love him in that film, and he's different in this one. I like that. It's like he's not just kind of doing the same kind of character over and over again. I should mention no Lam Ching Ying, who is like a staple of these movies, and for this one, he wasn't included for some reason. I'm intrigued to find out whether there's a reason for that in the audio commentary or even the booklet included in the release. And if you are not caught up, I'm just talking about the films in these initial 4 videos. I haven't gone into the extras yet because I want to kind of just give my fresh thoughts on each film, just watching them as a movie, basically. But so Wu Ma, I really, really like this guy a lot, and he's so good in this film. Like, he's so fun. Like, I don't know, there's a mischievousness to him that's really entertaining to watch. And I really liked his assistant, played by Loletta Lee. Like, I mean, she's beautiful, first and foremost, but she's got a real, I don't know, she's such a capable character. Like, you know, she just is kind of up for anything, and once shit truly hits the fan with the vampires, she's there kicking ass, you know, and doing whatever she can to protect this kind of character that comes into the movie who needs to be protected, who is once again, as far as I'm aware, the actor who plays the young vampire boy in Mr. Vampire 2 and the young ghost in Mr. Vampire 3. So he returns here as, it looks like he was kind of like a young emperor or something, or an important kind of royal figure, perhaps, who's being kind of transported by a bunch of guards and officers, and they're also taking with them this vampire in a huge coffin. And again, like I said, shit hits the fan, and so very quickly we have a vampire on the loose, and then there are a couple of people who get bit, and now they're on the loose, and this is all in this very, you know, fairly isolated area, and the only two kind of houses that exist are these 2 guys who hate each other's guts, but who are both very capable warriors in a way, in different styles and in different disciplines. And so, yeah, it really is that small. It's just the Taoist and the Buddhist, and then this kind of procession with these, you know, the coffin with the vampire inside it, and the young boy who needs to be protected and stuff. Because I think he gets slightly poisoned, and so they're trying to save him. But, you know, everything is so time sensitive that the bad guys turn up, the vampires turn up. Now, the introduction of the Taoist character, Anthony Chan's character, was so strange and funny, but also like, what the fuck? Like, it, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. So he's traveling with this long, like, it's like a conga line of hopping vampires who all have the paper talismans over their face so they can't go crazy or anything. And he's at the front of the conga line. He's like hopping along with them. And then they literally have to do, what's that thing? The limbo. They have to do the limbo underneath this. It's I'm just like, what the fuck is this film? And I love shit like that just again catches me so off guard. And it's goofy, it's funny, and he encounters this fox spirit in Pauline Wong, which is more of a kind of cameo more than anything, but kind of a funny one. So there's like already there's this kind of hopping vampire precedent set, but it's almost treated as like they're just kind of these, you know, little gremlin characters that don't pose much of a threat. But then as the film progresses and we get the main vampire who shows up, like, holy shit, definitely my favorite vampire character of the you know, obviously with the, as I say, the previous 3 films, there were no vampires in Mr. Vampire 3, but you know, I just thought that the makeup on this one was really cool. The progression of it, you know, as the fight continues throughout the film and the battle against this vampire wages on, he looks different and kind of it begins to transform and stuff. The eyes, really, really cool. And the fight scenes, man, the fight scenes are just fucking awesome. It's great stuff. Like, it's so entertaining to watch. There's these great moments of slow motion where you really get to see everything going on. And then just the way that it's kind of, the choreography of it is just ingenious. You know, when you have these vampires coming in, then you have Ching Ching, you have Carl Lock, and you have, you know, lots of different moving parts and kind of hopping over the wall into the next room and then jumping through this and you know, kind of throwing this. Like, it's so well staged and I loved it. I really did love this one. And I think that, judging it as I go, I think the third film overall is probably the better one. It's a bigger film. I feel like there's a nice arc going on there with Richard Ng's character. But I just think that this one, there's a charm to this one that isn't present in the other two. And I don't know, it's a weird thing to say. I just love the setting. I love this quaint little kind of country, how would you call it? Just a duo of houses. Like there's these two little houses, and just the comedy of like they're so close together that the Taoist can kind of look through his blinds, and literally the living room of the Buddhist is right there, like almost as if it's in his house. So they're living each other's pockets basically. And I don't know, I loved their rivalry. It was funny, and Anthony Chan was very I liked his kind of stern, kind of stuck up character. Like he really played that well, and like some of the goofier elements towards the end. There's literally a part of the end where he's like, "Okay, gods, help me give me your strength." It almost feels like I'm being offensive doing this, but I love all the little. This goes for all of the films, by the way. When the Taoists are kind of they're doing this and they're kind of whipping things around, and they'll pull things up like this and throw them, like the nuance of that, and that's really enhanced by the sound effects, which are kind of a bit goofy, but like I love all the like little paper things, and they throw them and they puff, like it's magic, it's movie magic, and it's kind of literal magic, and I really enjoy that stuff. And there's a bit where he's like, give me your strength, and he literally, his chest starts to puff up, and he literally is doing Hulk Hogan wrestling poses, and I was just dying. I was like, what? Like when that sort of thing happens in a film, first you think, what the hell's going on? Secondly, you think, what could possibly happen next? Like this sets such a precedent for further craziness that it's just like, it's a blast watching these films. They're not perfect. They're not like the best written in terms of like the traditional plot structure or whatever you want to call it. And I kind of bristle at people who get too bogged down in that kind of like, well, the 3-act structure wasn't adhered to. Like, yeah, sometimes a film can just be whatever the fuck it wants to be, and this film is what it wanted to be, and I love it for that. Yuen Wah plays a very I don't know, that's a character I'd be intrigued to kind of hear what people thought of it now, because it's a very, I don't know if it's an openly gay character. It kind of is, really. I just think that there's, I don't know, maybe at the time they'd say, oh, he's just an effeminate kind of character. But I mean, he's very clearly, he has the hots for Carl Lock's character. But he is a grating kind of, the presence in the film, right from the get-go. But I'd be intrigued to see how that would hold up under the modern kind of sensibilities of how perhaps gay characters are portrayed in a movie. But that was something I certainly wasn't expecting. And at the same time, I don't know what kind of state Hong Kong was in at that time in the late 1980s when it came to gayness, I suppose, being shown in a film or even being accepted in society. I have no idea of that whatsoever. Hopefully the commentary or some of the supplements will kind of, because I'd like to know that, because that part of the film to me was, I was just thinking that in the back of my head, like, was this something that, because there's certainly a part where he's kind of trying to kiss Carl Lock's character, and he's kind of like recoiling from it. Like, was that kind of a thing that people like, that's interesting to me to kind of know what the climate was like for the general public in terms of a gay character in a movie. And it also makes you think of that because I recently watched another Hong Kong film called Running Out of Time. And there are these two characters who are like, they're kind of opposed to each other, but there's this insane chemistry. And Connie watched that one with me. And we're both kind of like, it feels like more than just like, kind of bromance. Like this feels like a bit of, like they got the hots for each other. And they kind of play with it at the end of the film where one of the characters dresses up as a woman and it's like, give me a kiss on the cheek, And even then that was like made in 1999, 2000. And I'm thinking like, was that something that, because I mean, in every country, it's viewed differently, I think. And That's something I'd be interested to know based on Yuen Hua's very overtly gay character, I would think, for the time period, and even now, of course. So the film itself, overall, it's just a blast from start to finish for me. And it's just, you know, and I like the budding romance between, you know, Carlock and Ching Ching, but it kind of fizzles out a bit as the film kind of veers into the more action-focused stuff. But it was real sweet. There's a nice little moment where he throws away, like the thing you used to do as a kid, where you'd kind of get the 2 cups on the string and he'd throw it over to her and he's kind of speaking through it. And so there's a nice, sweet little... I would like to have seen it develop a bit more, perhaps, throughout the film or even towards the end. That's one thing I didn't like about the film is, and it seems to be a running trend now with all 3 movies I've watched so far, is the film will kind of reach the climax, and then normally in most films you'd have like a couple of minutes to kind of say, okay, and then here's how things panned out. But they don't give you that. They just go, okay, now we're going to do a joke, and freeze frame, the end. It always ends on a gag, and then just freeze frame right into credits. I would have liked to have seen a bit of the aftermath in this one. I do. So did the Taoist and the Buddhist kind of resolve their differences? Did the romance go anywhere? That kind of thing. And did they successfully protect the young boy sufficiently, and what would have happened to him? So I would have liked that in this one, because I really grew attached to the characters. I think that really helps. I think I liked all the characters in this really quite a lot, and then there's so much great action going on that for me I was invested in everything in terms of like which character was doing what. There's some really funny, like I mean, I'm just going there's funny this, there's funny that, but like just specific moments I could go on and on about. But there's one in particular where the Taoist and the Buddhist are forced to kind of team up, because that's, you know, both their assistants are in danger, their houses are in danger, they got to take care of this vampire. And so the Taoist is like, come, let's go get some weapons. And he hands Wu Ma this like tiny little dagger, and he's like, what the fuck is this? And then the Taoist pulls out this massive sword, like overcompensating much. And then later on he pulls out an even bigger one, and it's ludicrous, but it also kind of works. And that is something that these films are really showing me, is that sometimes they just inject the most outrageous and outlandish kind of jokes, sight gags, and little bits of humor that just catch you off guard. But they kind of work because the tone is as such that, you know, they're not taking it seriously. They are and they aren't at the same time, but you really get the sense that they're just making this film to be super fun for the audience. It isn't meant to be a masterpiece. It's not meant to be a 5-star classic. It's purely meant to really get a rise out of an audience in terms of excitement through great action scenes and enjoyment and laughter out of really fun comedy. And in both instances, I think the action and the comedy, they're really going full tilt. You know, they're really throwing everything at the wall. And for me, almost all of that works. And so for me, this might be my favorite one, I think. Yeah, because I loved all the kid stuff in Mr. Vampire 2, which from what I've seen on Letterboxd is the thing people don't like about the movie. But for Mr. Vampire 4, Saga 4, I loved all of it, you know. I don't know. Yeah, this was a real surprise for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Loved it even, I should say. And a lot of that is to do with the actors. Like Carlock, who's he's kind of, again, the stereotypical kind of bumbling assistant type, but I know something to him. I thought he was a bit more interesting, and there's something. I know I liked his performance for some reason, some unknowable, unthinkable reason. I liked it. He was a bit different. The typical kind of assistant type who means well and kind of is capable but kind of bumbles a little bit. That kind of thing. Usually it's someone who's a bit goofier. He wasn't quite goofy. He was goofy. I'm really not explaining myself well. I just think that he was a bit more competent and had a bit more promise as a character, potentially. I don't know. I liked him a lot in the film, and I really love Loletta Lee. I just think that I'd love to see what else she's done. Not a name I've heard of before, but she had a real spirit you know, and I really enjoyed seeing her in the film and seeing all the, like, I loved how she kind of like just took no shit right from the beginning. Because when she comes in as Wu Ma's assistant, I thought she'd be the subservient kind of assistant to him and stuff. But, you know, there's a whole kind of thing at the beginning I won't get into, but she kind of gets made a fool of a little bit, and she doesn't take shit from anyone. Like, Wu Ma's meant to be like this grandmaster Buddhist, and she just throws this bucket of water over him and the assistant. She takes no shit, and I like that, and that's fun, and she really sells that with confidence, and I think that's really fun to watch on screen too. And then she kind of softens and shows her softer side once Karlock kind of, you know, he kind of shows her more of who he really is, I think. And I would like to see the romance continue a little bit more in the film, perhaps, but that is pretty much it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and if you have seen this film, let me know what you think. I'm almost like, should I even do my traditional look on Letterboxd kind of process after watching a film? Because I can just see me looking at this one and seeing like 1.5 stars, 2 stars. It's goofy. It doesn't make sense. No. You know. Oh, and the vampire, we get some hopping. You know, that's there, and I like the hopping vampire style. There's just something different about it that's cool and different, I guess. I don't know. It's not the typical, you know, swooping in and like I mean, there is that. There's definitely there's that, but it's like, I don't know, there's a different kind of offense when a character's kind of stationary and they lean forward or they hop forward as opposed to running or walking or kind of lunging. Like it's different, and it makes the fight scenes more interesting too. And this just, I mean, really the choreography in this is just phenomenal. There's just some really innovative movements going on with like multiple kind of performers. And actually, I will say one more thing. The actor, and I hope I haven't been pronouncing it wrong this whole video, but who plays the assistant, Chin Karlock, he is so good at the action stuff that you are literally seeing shots in the film where he is getting thrown up in the air, spinning around and landing on the floor really hard, and you can see that he's doing it. There's no stunt double for him. So I really respected that, because he took some really, and it's things that maybe other people wouldn't look at and think it was that impressive. I don't know, because maybe coming from a wrestling background and knowing how certain things hurt when you throw yourself up in the air and land on the floor again. There were just a few bits and pieces in the film where I thought like he really took a big, you know, hard fall there, and then the scene just continued. It almost doesn't linger on it too much, and so all the credit to him for that. And that's another aspect that really sold the film to me as well, was that I don't know, that those 4 characters, the 2 masters and their 2 assistants, I think made a great quartet. And then with the vampires coming in, it was just, yeah, it was a recipe for a really fun, entertaining film that I absolutely loved. The last one has a lot to live up to from these past 3 films, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. It's called Vampire vs. Vampire. I believe this is a bit more of a departure in terms of it's not directed by Ricky Lau, and is not, you know, from what I did have like a quick Wikipedia look at these films beforehand, and from what I read, it isn't quite as, you know, on the same level as the other ones. But that, you know, that's just another opportunity for me to be surprised, and going in with lower expectations is probably a good thing. But again, going back to Mr. Vampire 2, like if that was the only film, I'd be happy. If these 3 films were the only 3 films, I'd be happy. So anything else is a bonus. I'm looking forward to checking it out. Lam Ching-ying is back for that one. I did look that one up. And, you know, is his presence missed in this one? I think so. But at the same time, I think Wu Ma, for me, I just love watching him so much. He really filled that gap for me, even though he's not the Taoist character. So Anthony Chan, I liked how the Taoist was not this, you know, this, what's the word? There wasn't like a purity to him, you know, because he kind of used his powers to be a dick against Wu Ma, which, you know, so he wasn't like the squeaky clean, goody two-shoes Taoist priest, and he was a bit of a dick as well. So I liked that it was a switch up on that. He wasn't just the unibrowed kind of pure good guy. He was, you know, a bit mix going on there in terms of his personality and what he would use his kind of his skills for. So that was a nice kind of, that was flipping things on its head a little bit, which I really appreciated. But I am looking forward to getting back to seeing Lam Ching-ying once again, kind of taking up the robe, I would assume, and the coin sword, and getting ready to take on some vampires. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.